months.
Yeah, they don't have a lot that goes on in February or even March sometimes. And then like November's kind of the same way. I mean, they've got the year-end stuff with all that things they gotta do, but there's no mosquitoes out right now, so they're not doing much.
Doing a whole lot.
So you kind of carry over the bills for an extra month.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever had a meeting that went really more than an hour.
Okay, well, that's good. I like those type of meetings.
And then they have the yearly conference that they pay everything for. Last year was in Park City, so I just took my wife.
And it's just a just an overnighter, right?
Yeah, it was actually nights.
Oh, wow.
It was a Sunday night and a Monday night. So it was a Monday and Tuesday conference, but you can go to like all of the mosquito stuff because really most of the guys I found out just went to they do one afternoon, which is what you're supposed to have anyway. So most of them attend that, and the rest of them go to anything else.
Testing. It didn't sound like it was working. It's working.
Man, you like to make long agendas when you start, don't you?
I didn't make the agenda. It's just the first of the year. You blame half of this on the planning commission. A lot of it on the planning commission. A lot of it on the planning commission.
Hopefully most of it is quick.
Where'd David go?
Things walk out.
There he is. Okay, I'd like to call this city council meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. Bear with me, this is only my second time, but hopefully I'll be a little smoother than I was last time. So first order of business is we're gonna, this is exciting, we're swearing in our new council member, Janelle Latham.
I, Janelle Latham,
Do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and I will discharge the duties
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Janelle.
Welcome.
And welcome, yes.
Thank you.
And now that you're official, so the first thing we're going to ask you to do is lead us in a pledge of allegiance, and Josh will offer a prayer.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we are grateful for the opportunity to gather here this night, to come together as citizens and friends, and to be able to discuss the affairs that are going on in this wonderful city. We're grateful for this opportunity and the wonderful place that we live. We ask that would continue to watch over our city, bless it, guide it. Bless those that are sick at this time, who are dealing with sickness in their families, friends, wherever they may be, that they may be watched over and given health and strength. We pray that we'll be able to be guided this night as we discuss matters and be able to make good decisions and work together. And this is our prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. Thank you, Josh. Next item, public comments. Are there any public comments? Please come to the podium and identify yourself.
Hi, my name's Mike Beal. I live at 1407 North, 2000 West here in Far West. I've been coming to these meetings for too long, but I'm not going to quit coming. Congratulations to the new people and the old people that are still here to be here again to represent us, the people of this city. I noticed we have a nice new form, and I think that's a great idea. For the years that I've been coming here, I hated to see what was on the top of the agenda before, that if you have a comment, don't expect an answer. And I think this is wonderful, because there's a lot of folks out here in the city that would like a true answer to their questions. And thank all these people for coming. Look at this. This is the most I've seen here in many days. Thank you again, and enjoy the new year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, yeah, we do have these forms on the entry, so if you want an answer to a question, we will. And that also gives you an opportunity to make a comment or ask a question. Like if you're not comfortable coming up to the podium, you can still ask your question, and we will hear it. And we will do something about it, so thank you. Any more public comments? Okay, report from Planning Commission. Geneva, you get to do it.
Lucky you guys get me today.
Yes.
Okay, we had kind of a lengthy meeting, so I'll go through each of them, and you'll see obviously a lot of them on your agenda. So first, we started with 2 public hearings for conditional use permits for accessory buildings over 2,000 square feet. One located at 2821 West, 3375 North, and that is Troy Galloway. And then one located at 1267 West Harrisville Road, and that is Douglas Ross. We then proceeded with the meeting and moved on to amending our general plan to accommodate an M1 zone off of, well, I don't know the road that it's off of, but it's located at 1600 West, 2350 North. We then moved into approving a rezone that you guys will see up for recommendation for that M1 zone. And seeing that we did it in order, amending the general plan and then moving into the rezone. So then we moved on to Happy Days Phase 3, which was actually tabled due to some discrepancies in drainage that we had talked about in previous preliminary discussions. And it wasn't really quite sure when they got here for final. So we tabled them. Then lastly, well, not lastly, actually, we then recommended to you guys to reappoint Lou Bess, myself, and Brandon Whitesides to the Planning Commission, along with recommending, Ted back into the chair position for the Planning Commission and myself in the vice chair position. Then we approved minutes, and that was it. Any questions?
Yeah, don't go too far in case we do have questions.
I won't, trust me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geneva. Okay, moving on. So going into the business items, and as we did last time, I'm gonna ask that we do roll call vote on these, except for ones I'll ask for a voice vote. Some of them we don't need a roll call, like going into a public hearing. So first order of business is the approval of the reappointment of Lou Best, Geneva Blanchard, and Brandon Whitesides to the Planning Commission.
I'd like to make that motion that we approve the reappointment of Lou Best, Geneva Blanchard, and Brandon Whitesides to the Planning Commission, and thank them for wanting to do that again. So
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Boyd and a second by David. Any more discussion? All in favor? Let's start with David.
Yes.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, next item, approval of appointment of Planning Commission Chair and Vice Chair, which will be Ted Black and Geneva Blanchard.
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Ted as the Planning Commission Chair and Geneva as the Vice Chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's a motion by Josh and a second by Boyd. Any further discussion? I'll take a roll call vote. David? Yes. Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, moving on. We have a presentation and acceptance of the 2021 fiscal year audit report. Ryan Child. Is Ryan here?
Are you?
Are
okay
you
if I take
Ryan?
this off?
You're not Ryan, are you?
No, I'm Cammie Moss. I
Okay.
am with Child Richards CPAs and Advisors. And we were fortunate enough to get to do your audit this year.
Okay.
So in front of you, I have passed out the audit reports along with a letter. So I'll start with the letter and, okay, so this is just letting you know that we have prepared the financial statements for the city of Far West for June 30th, 2021. And it basically just points out what our agreement is. As far as that goes, management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies. There is also accounting estimates that are used with accounting, useful life of capital assets, value of contributed capital, and we did review those and they appear within reason. There was no difficulties encountered or any significant problems with staff or any management. They were all very good to work with. They were also willing to correct any recommendations or any concerns that we had. So that is definitely a great thing with to have that relationship with staff as well and have them willing to do that. So so that's the first letter. Then we'll go to the meat of the presentation, the audit report. If you want to go to page 1, which is just a few pages in, it's the independent auditor's report. And this is really what you're asking from us, is to give you our opinion on this. This is what's considered a clean and unmodified report. So it's, our responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on our audit. And in our opinion, the financial statements referred to are presented fairly in all material aspects. So they are, that's a good audit opinion. That's the best audit opinion you can get. So that's great. Okay, the next page I want to go to is actually page 5. And this is in what's called the Management Discussion and Analysis, or the MD&A for short. And this page just, it's really nice because it compares things from year to year. So I'll just kind of go through and highlight a couple of things that have changed from the year. Your current and other assets increased by about $965,000 from the previous year. Your capital assets increased by about $878,000. That was mainly due to some improvements and some land purchase and some automobiles that were purchased, all normal course of business. And then if we go down to the long-term liabilities, they did decrease by about $100,000. That is mainly made up of your compensated absences and your pension. And that is an accrual adjustment. There really isn't any long-term liabilities for the city. And then overall, your liabilities did decrease by about $160,000. So that's great. The other liabilities, just to point out, that's made up of the accounts payable and deposits. So that's definitely, a positive trend. And then your deferred inflows, part of that, it went down by $106,000, but part of that is relating to the pension, or not pension, sorry, property tax, and also some CARES money that last year it was accrued, this year it's been received, so, and spent. So that is why the change in the deferred inflow. Okay, and then in the net position, I just wanted to point out that your net investment in capital assets is 67% of your net position, which is typical. That's your investment in like your fixed assets, those types of things. And that's a typical thing that's usually the highest value. The restricted assets is only about 6%, and then your unrestricted is approximately 26%. And that's within the state restriction amount, so you're within a good range on that, and there's no concern there, so that was great. The next page, if you go over to the next page, this gives you the income statement, often referred to, or profit and loss, some people refer it to. But this is basically just comparing again the 2 years. Your charges for services, it was kind of interesting year with a lot of governments that revenues were up in places you didn't really expect it to go up in. But your charges for services went up about 166,000. A lot of that is your building permits. A lot of people saw that surge in the building, and it was kind of surprising given that we all had COVID around. So that was good. Your operating grants and contributions, it did go up by approximately 672,000. 609 of that was CARES money. So you'll see that go back down next year because that CARES money is not going to likely come into effect again. Another interesting area was your other taxes. That did go up about 309,000. Sales tax went up. And to me, that was shocking that so many people saw sales tax go up so much. But a lot of it is that the point of sale with Amazon and your online delivery, that comes into factor with your sales tax revenue. And so more people were ordering online. You didn't have to actually have a physical place that people went and bought things. It was that home delivery is what seemed to trend that up. So that definitely was positive for you. Your general government expenses did go up by 565,000. 609 of that was the CARES spending. So they actually didn't really increase if you take into factor the CARES. So, and then your public safety, a big portion of that was your animal control, which everybody saw that as well from what we're seeing. The next page I'd like to go to is a couple pages in. We're going to go to page 42. This is the budget to actual for your general fund. And I just like to kind of point out a few things here. Again, the sales tax revenue, you had about $450,000 more than what was budgeted, which again is a shocker, but we all didn't know what was going on when that was happening. All of a sudden, sales tax was coming in. It was great. Again, you can see that your building permits were up about $165,000 more than your budget. Your plan check fee was also up about $70,000 more than the budget. So those are positive things. That's very good. That revenues were up, and you can also see that $609,000 of CARES Act grant money. So total revenues were $757,000 more than what was anticipated with the budget. And then on the next page, page 43, if you look at the expenditures, you can see that as a total for each department, they are not over budget. That is what we look at for state compliance to make sure that you don't go over budget within each category. And they all looked definitely good that way. And then if you go to page 44, you'll see that the increase in the fund balance was $947,000, and that's trending in a healthy way. So, okay, and then I'm gonna jump back to page 8. Sorry. And I just like to point out that this is the statement of net position. This is basically just the single year of where the city is sitting, and explain to you that these other financial statements, that's kind of what the MD&A summarizes is these. So, okay. And then the final thing I want to go over, again, we're going to jump back to page 49, sorry.
How come we didn't get tabs in our?
I'm sorry, I should have. And actually, as I write these, it's so funny. I write them from the back to the forward because it all summarizes up. But, okay, so on page 49, this is just a report of how your internal controls were. We did not notice any deficiency in internal controls, which is wonderful. Internal controls are something that will prevent or detect fraud or misstatement in a timely manner. We can go through and we can review as many documents as we can, but we may not detect it, whereas internal controls will prevent and detect. And so we like to test those and make sure that they are doing their job. And we felt like the internal controls were well done and being followed, and that they were designed well. So that is definitely a pat on the back for your staff to do that and to, understand that that not only protects the city, but it protects them as individuals too. I always like to point that out. So that was really good. And then on page 51, this is the state compliance. As part of an audit, the state auditor requires us to review various sections of state compliance to make sure that you're within law or within the law for these particular areas. The ones we reviewed this year, and they rotate sometimes. Some stay the same, some rotate. But the areas we reviewed were budgetary compliance, justice courts, restricted taxes and related revenues, tax levy revenue recognition, fund balance, governmental fees, fraud risk assessment, and transfers from utility enterprise funds. And we did not find any problems with those. Everything was within compliance. And so our opinion is that those are being followed. So is there any questions you have for me?
So if this had a color, would it be red, yellow, or green?
It would be very good.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for the
Thanks for
opportunity.
your time.
Thank you. So I will entertain a motion on this for acceptance.
Motion to accept the 2021 fiscal year audit report.
I'll second.
Okay, that's a motion by Boyd and a second by Josh. This will be a voice vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next item. Public hearing to consider the request to vacate the public utility easement for Jared and Connie Hadley located at 2131 West, 2075 North. Jared, would you like to come up and explain what you're asking?
Well, we
Need to go
we
into
need to
public
go in.
Oh, go into the, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to go into the public hearing to consider the request for vacating the public easement.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Now we're in the public hearing. Now you can come up, Jared. My apologies.
Thanks for having me, guys. So I didn't realize there was a public utility easement attached to our lot. I'm trying to get it vacated so I can put a shed in our backyard because my children are taking over my garage with their stuff. I need a place for my stuff, so. Pretty simple, and that's kind of what we're asking for here.
Okay, any
I-
discussion?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
Some of the spots say a south and east. It looks like you're just doing it on the east. Is that right? Like
It is
right behind
on
fence?
the east side, yes,
But you're not-
southeast side of our lot.
Back in the corner or where you drew in kind of the middle?
It's not in the very back. There's a small garden in the back corner, and then it's right above the garden.
Okay.
It's still about 10, 15 feet back from our fence.
Okay. There was just, like,
It's not a great picture.
it's okay. And your neighbors, you have some signed paper from the neighbors?
Yep,
Is one of that, the one on that side that the shed will be on?
Yep, they signed the petition. I submitted that with my packet to the city.
That's all I had.
Any public comments?
Any other public comments? Input, neighbors?
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now out of the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. We'll go too far just in case we have questions.
I'll be right back here.
Okay, so next item is the approval of the ordinance 2101, the very first one of the year, Jared, how's that? Vacating a public easement for Jared and Connie Hadley located 2631 West, 2075 North.
So usually Robbie's here. Nate, there wasn't any concerns on the city side, right?
There wasn't any utility, existing utility in that easement.
Okay.
Had all the letters and stuff. So I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the ordinance number 2021-01 vacating the public easement, utility easement for Jared and Tony Hadley, located at 2631 West, 2075.
I'll second that.
Sorry.
Okay, we have a motion by David and a second by Boyd and almost by Josh. Because he was trying to squeak it in
David
there.
just kept going, huh?
Dragging it on.
So we'll do this roll call vote. All in favor? David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Next item, approval of a conditional use permit for Troy Galloway for an accessory building over 2,000 square feet located at 2821 West, 3375 North. Is Troy here? Would you like to come up and explain to the council like you did to the planning commission?
What I'm just looking to do is put a accessory building in the back for my toys, essentially. I have my snowmobile trailer, my razor trailer, my truck, and I'm trying to put a car lift inside there. So I just am looking to have a little bit of extra room to cover my stuff, keep it out of the weather.
Yeah, if I remember right, you already had your easements vacated.
Right, I got all that taken care of.
Okay, how does,
Geneva, you guys mentioned you had the public hearings on these. You didn't say the results. There wasn't any feedback or? Okay.
and is this the one that was readjusted a little bit on its size?
The height.
That's right.
Oh, yes, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I originally was looking at trying to do 24 feet because I wanted a 14-foot garage door to put a camp trailer in it. But anyways, I adjusted it down to 20 feet to the peak.
Okay, and that's within?
We're gonna work with Nate on maybe the setbacks and.
Yep. Yep, and I talked to.
Setback rules is based on roof height now, but he has been in the process prior to us in that conversation, so he was asking if maybe we would grandfather him in to that, which I feel is fair, because he did the right thing by vacating those easements, and it took him a long time to get there. He would have been here in what,
February of last year is when I started the whole process. A year later.
He deserves a little break.
Is that shop going to be at the back of the property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I did get all the neighbors to sign off on it everywhere around.
Lonnie behind you, I mean, he's good with that too. I mean, your backdoor neighbor, everything.
Lonnie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I'll make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit based on the planning commission's input for Troy Galloway for an accessory building at 2821 West, 3375 North.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by David and a second by Janelle. Roll call vote. David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Unanimous, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on. So H, approval of a conditional use permit for Douglas C. Ross for a 2,120 square foot accessory building located at 1267 West Harrisville Road. Doug, would you like to come up and tell us your story?
Good evening. Thank you for entertaining us. Excuse me. I have too much stuff. This is a totally engineered building by Nucor. All of the specs for the footings and foundations are done by a professional engineering outfit. And it will not impact my neighbors directly to the east of me at all. I've been in contact with all of them. Actually had 2 representatives of my neighbors at the hearing last week. So it will add value not only to that particular piece of property, but to the entire community. So thank you for your consideration.
Okay. You. A motion? I'll entertain a motion.
I can motion the approval of a conditional use permit for Douglas C. Ross for 2120 square foot accessory building at 1267 West Harrisville Road.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Janelle and a second by Josh. Roll call vote. David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Congratulations. You can build your building and hide your stuff. Thank you. Okay, I. Approval of amending the general plan to accommodate the M1 zone on the Papa George property located at 16 West, 2350 North, parcel number 19-042-049. So Geneva, do you want to give us a little bit of detail, further detail on this?
Yeah, do you want me to stand up?
Yes, please. So you're talking into the mic and the recording and all the folks that are.
Ted's so rigid about it, so I should have known. And I hate to say, I missed the work session where we talked about the actual conditions that we placed on this, moving into the next item, but we basically were presented with an idea to have some sort of industrial use on this piece. So we considered it as a planning commission to revise the M1 zone, to add a better buffer between industrial and residential, which this piece presented. As a planning commission, we came up with a list, and part of doing this was amending the general plan because our general plan does not support that being an industrial area. What are your questions? It's kind of all I have.
I just had a question, and I was there last week, so I know you guys have hashed this over a lot. The setback right now is equal to or greater than the highest point of the building, which sounds good. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, really, if you have a 30-foot building, 30 feet from the property line may not be a lot.
Is that
So
our-
I don't know.
What did we change it to in
That's the revised one.
Minimum of 20 feet.
And then, or
and
equal to
then
the
in
height.
addition, based on the height of the building. What you stated is correct.
Yeah.
Okay,
30-foot building would be 30 foot.
right. So I just like,
You have to take into account a little bit of also the privacy fencing that was takes
Right.
place.
I guess I think those buildings on 1200,
Yeah.
and there's a
that
huge
is-
setback, but
I
they're still
know.
like towering.
And we took those into account when we talked about it
Yeah.
because it is an eyesore if you're a resident and you're looking at that every day when you aren't used to that. But at the same time, you have to take into account what the property user wants to do. So we felt like that was a fair compromise. But I mean, we can always adjust it too, based on, I mean, this is up to you guys, so.
I'm not as concerned about like for the property in question, more just.
Just in general, yeah. Yeah. And this really is the only place that an M1 is going to buffer a residential zone. And that's what kind of made this a little bit harder, is because we're not specifically putting these conditions for one piece and it becomes part of a whole zone. But this is a particular area where a lot of our M1 is never going to buffer residential like this. So.
Hey, any other questions from the council?
So one thing I did, in regard to the conditions Ted emailed out, I did call him because I felt they were all pretty defined, except for the lighting was pretty poor because it really was hard. There was nothing in the lighting that was enforceable. It was like general guidelines kind of stuff. And I talked to Ted about that, and he recognized that that's a hard target to hit.
And that's what, it was really hard. And we looked through other cities and some are still, 10 years ago. I mean, there's no regulations really. So we did our best to make it so that we can enforce something as well as giving them an expectation at the same time.
That made sense. And I kind of mentioned to Ted he said, you guys were going to work on that
Yeah.
soon. And so, one of my thoughts was is maybe in part of those recommendations from the planning commission, kind of maybe define that they need to adhere to the updated lighting standards that will be coming, just so that we can get those a little better clarified.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Um,
Definitely.
Also, just comment on that, Josh, I think there's a lot of electrical engineers out there that understand this and some of this, even, we can define it and we should define it, but electrical engineers will look at this and say, okay, I have to do shielded, dark sky, whatever we.
And most of it was, the at or near the property line, is that 10 feet, 15 feet, 30 feet? It's just, getting some of that a little better defined, which I know is
It
coming.
was really hard.
Yeah.
It
so.
was. And trying to even find one city that did the same as the next. It was hard.
So that was my only comment, so.
Getting light to behave is.
Same as noise. You'll notice noise was another one that both of those are subjective, and it was really hard to settle in on exactly what we expected.
Well, based on where this property is, next to the industrial park, I would make the motion, I'd like to make a motion that we amend the general plan to accommodate the M1 zone on the Papa George property.
And just to comment, I think it's good that we went about it the right way and actually amending the general plan before we move forward.
That's,
with
I agree
changing
with that.
it. Yeah, so thank you for that, Planning Commission. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Boyd and a second by David. We'll do roll call vote on this. David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. And that helps step us into the next one, because without this, the next one would be more difficult. J, approval of the request of the rezone of the Papa George property located approximately 1600 West, 2350 North, parcel 1942-049 from A1 to the M1 zone. Don, did you want to come up and speak to this a bit? Tell us your story and be prepared to answer any questions.
Yeah, John Watson, 1623 Far West Drive. Been a resident here almost all my life. And thank you. Janelle, welcome to the council.
Thank you.
And for those of you that serve, each one of you, I know you personally, and Mayor, for your new assignment. For each of you, thank you for the work you do. For the last several months, I've been working on this project and spent a lot of time trying to do what I felt was a positive thing for the city of Far West. In my opinion, the best use of this land is for industrial use, such as warehousing. That was the intended use 50 years ago when the land all around it was sold to the Weber County Industrial Park, and a road was stubbed into the property line. M1 zoning surrounds this property on the north, the northwest, and the east borders of the property. With the exception of David's property, everything else around it is M1 currently. The Papa George family has an interest in this zoning change as well, or this decision. After 100 years of backbreaking farming, they'd like to optimize the value of their land. They deserve a choice. Far West residents on Far West Drive, for the most part, and I've talked to many of them, and they're in favor of this rezoning because they don't want traffic on a dead-end road that they currently live on, which is a smaller road than most in the city, doesn't have curb and gutter, and more traffic is a nuisance on that road. Equally, they don't want high-density apartments on pieces of ground that would have to feed into that road for an access, which brings a whole nother set of problems. I have will serve letters from all of the utilities that are needed on that land. I spent time with Marathon Oil, who has a pipeline through there, and they have given verbal approval for an easement to be crossed for the road off of 2350 North for access. The Planning Commission approved M1 zoning last week, and we just heard that they also amended the plan, which I congratulated those that they did it the right way, as David has done tonight, because it does make it more reasonable if we have it in the right order. And Mayor, I think you started that as I started this whole process here.
A few times, yes.
The city obviously is interested, but one of the reasons I think that it's important is they can control and oversee what takes place. They can oversee fees, impact fees, building permits. As we heard, building permits were up in our audit here a little bit ago. There's a sizable building permit amount on this. And ultimately, annual taxation, that will be a part of that will come to Far West City, albeit we all know that property taxes, you only get a small increment, but over the next 100 years, that amounts to something. There's one last thing I'd like to just mention about it. If you privatize, which I think is the right thing to do, the owner would be responsible for snow removal, lawn care, maintenance, not the city. Therefore, because it's in a block that's really isn't accessed on any Far West roads and goes on to county roads out into the industrial park, the city really wouldn't have any maintenance issues of any concern cost-wise into there. This completed project is somewhere around $45 million. And it would employ a bunch of people and hopefully some from Far West City. So I hope that you're in favor of this. I think that it's a very positive thing for our community, and I think it's a positive thing for the Papa George family. It's a positive thing for me. I would openly admit that. But it really does and will be a good use of property that typically will not be seen other than for a very small section of Far West Drive. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Any questions or comments or?
If there's no questions or comments,
I just had one, and this is really more of a process question. I just want to go back to Planning Commission of 1110. And it was tabled with the direction to establish a buffer between M1 and residential. I just want to, I guess it's more of a legal / process. I want to make sure that the city's covered. And if we approve this, did we meet the needs that were established on that day in that meeting? So I don't know who is best to answer that, but I think it's just something, let's make sure we handle
They
it.
tabled this, but then they came up with that list. So when they gave their motion in the last meeting, that's the list that Ted emailed out. Those were the conditions that
Right.
they sent out, I think, to meet this requirement, right?
Understanding that, just want to make sure that we're following the process that we should. And so that's.
I've heard these conditions now, are these conditions on the rezone, or how are these conditions applied?
Well,
the
these
property.
conditions are gonna be on his side, on his rezone, and then they'll eventually be applied to and they'll become the M1 zone. We're kind of doing one before the other.
Yeah, I mean, normally, it's not how we did this closely, normally we don't do rezones with conditions, I mean, you're either in the zone or you're not in the zone. The conditions would come in when a site plan would come in for approval.
Right.
So that's my only question, is these conditions may or may not be applicable. I mean, once you're in the M1 zone, whatever is on the books now for M1 zone is applicable. And so just, I mean, lawyers are always thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen? And John, you live for another 100 years, but we walk out tonight and then suddenly this property changes hands and the zoning has been in place. Where do those conditions fit in? That's my question for the council.
And can we make a stipulation? So legally, I mean, can we say, okay, you're rezoned, we approve a rezone or we don't approve a rezone, but it's under the conditions when your site plan comes in that you follow these? Can that be put in a motion?
It could be put in motion.
So it's on,
Natural effect of that is
My only question is normally, the cart would be before the horse here. Normally, the rezone, or if you're gonna make changes to the zone, normally the changes would happen. Then the application would come in for the, whatever the project was, and you would go from there. That's what this is.
Geneva, do we know when the M1 zone would be? You know, I know you talked about adding the conditions, but do we know like a timeline for that?
We're pretty much there, but this was just an effort to help the applicant, I believe. I honestly don't know why, I can't tell you why we're doing one before the other. I would say that we were close and that it wouldn't, I mean, other than a couple of revisions in lighting, and Lou may have a better answer.
There was a time consideration here. In the ideal world, would revise the ordinance with all these stipulations in the ordinance for M1 juxtaposed to residential. Given the time constraints, what we thought we would do is we're still gonna revise the M1. All of the conditions that you see are conditions for all situations, not just this one. In other words, we're revising the M1 for general purposes, not just to accommodate this one request. But we felt in our recommendation to you for approval for rezone, that it be stated very clearly that these are conditions we are going to impose, okay? So when the applicant comes in with a site plan, we didn't want them to be blindsided with a bunch of conditions that weren't clearly elaborated before. I realize that there's some awkwardness in this, but we were just trying to be as open in communication as we possibly could.
Okay, John, you look like you wanted to say something. You can, come on up. Thank you.
Just specific to, I heard those conditions and was very willing to accept those conditions. Part of this was timeline because we bumped all into Thanksgiving and Christmas and there were no meetings. And I need to execute on a contract. Secondly, I would suppose that if I came in here and asked for M1 zoning and submitted my paperwork, then I should be voted upon at that time for my request. They don't change, the attorney in here, they don't change ordinances every time someone walks in the door and asks for something. We either vote it up or we vote it down, don't we? So, they were, and rightfully so, they wanted to make sure that it was right. David sits on this council and is aware of all of these things. And with that, he wanted some specific things, certainly, because he's the neighbor. And he's my friend. He's been that way since he was a little boy. And I certainly don't want a wedge driven between the Chugs and myself. But there should be some definition on this. And if I stand here and say that I'm willing to accept conditions that these good people have really worked on to make happen, it's not likely that I'm coming to Nate in a week to get a building permit. There's a lot of work that's going to be done. And these stipulations, I'm sure, are going to be firmly in place as that happens. And in my opinion, that's the place where we sit down and say, yeah, I know about lighting. I know about setback. I know about a fence. I know about noise. I know about these things that the commission has come up with, and I'm in agreement with them. So my hope is that you'd look at it on that regard and try to make a decision tonight instead of kicking the can down the road further.
Thank you, John. And that's not my intent. I just want to make sure that the city is covered, that we, if we vote to approve this, we do it in a way that we don't get ourselves into trouble.
With our eyes open.
Yes, that's my intent.
But I agree with Ryan that we're approving it based off our court ordinances, but we're going down the assumption that we're going to revise those ordinances for that buffer.
I think he was also stated, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, that if you approve the M1, it's as the M1 reads today.
That was my question.
John alluded to, I mean, that's, you asked for the change and this is the change. Now, some way to address this, and again, the only concern is what happens when there are different parties. You know, when, take John at his word for as long as I live. But what happens if there are different parties, and we don't think that's gonna happen? So one way to maybe address this is, I don't know, John, if there was any kind of plan of doing a development agreement with the city for that project, but those kind of conditions would then be put in that development agreement. I don't know how close they are to that, or I don't think
But that's something after the zoning.
that would be something after that. So there are ways to address it. There's also ways to just say, yeah, we think it's gonna be okay. I'm just pointing out that normally you would, if you're gonna change the M1, normally you would do that before, well, yeah, I should say that, normally you would not put conditions on a rezone. Yes. That's the abnormality there.
Good. Just a couple of things about these. When we.
Lou, would you mind coming up to the mic so we can record your voice?
When we deliberated all these conditions, one of the things we carefully considered was all the concerns expressed by the citizens in that public hearing. And I believe we've done a good job of addressing all of the reasonable concerns. I realize this seems like a cart before the horse, but whether we present this list to you now in this rezone, or whether it becomes a very firm list in the site plan, it's going to be the same list, okay? And one thing Ted wanted to make clear is when we're revising the zone, we're not just revising it for this request. We're making a universal change in that particular ordinance that's going to apply to every applicant hereafter.
Okay. So again, I just want to reiterate, yeah, the conditions are good, everything's good. It's just, what is the process, Ryan, to get us through this to where we're not getting into?
I want to step out with a process and we can vote from there. I would like to make a motion that we approve the request for the rezone of the Papa George property located at approximately 1600 west and 2350 north with the attached parcel number from A1 to M1. And I know that we can't put conditions on it, but with stipulations.
Well, I think we can just say accept the conditions that have been accepted by.
Except
Mr. Watson.
with the conditions that have been accepted by Mr. Watson and provided by our planning commission or by development agreement, but this will all come with the site plan. That's my motion.
And I'd just like to hear from Ryan. Is this good?
Yeah.
Does this work?
I think under the circumstances, I think that's the best thing.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Boyd. Do we have a second? And a second by Josh. So we've heard from legal, we've heard from our recommendations from our planning commission and promises from the applicant. So let's put this to a vote. David?
Yes.
Josh? Aye. Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we get to have a discussion action here about, so.
We're not gonna pay you.
Yeah, no, so the new mayor came in and he read the ordinance and started asking questions. And so more questions came up because it was like, wait a minute, something that has been going on doesn't exactly match what we have done. So I asked the question. So I think we have the code reads that the mayor gets a, how does it read? I don't have it right in front of me. We get an allowance for a vehicle, allowance for fuel, and a cell phone. And the pay is $1,000 a month. That's what it says in the code. So I'm open for the discussion and I'm okay with whatever you choose. I'm not in this for the money. And I have a feeling Cody would love to address this.
So this came from me because I heard that our new mayor was asking about it. I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, we've got to look at what's budgeted. And this is your caveat. And so I do have the code in front of me. So it says that the mayor and council, the mayor's compensation is $1,000 per month. City council members is $350 per month. Then item D says the position of mayor shall be given a vehicle, fuel, or cell phone allowance in the form and amount as set by the Far West City Council. So you guys get to dictate the form and the amount. So that could be zero, that could be whatever you want. Budgeted in 2017, from research that city staff has done and looking at the budget, the amount was increased from $1,000 to $1,200. Now, what that additional $200 was for was never clearly defined, and this code section was not updated. So Mayor Dickamore was receiving $1,200 a month, plus the city was paying for his cell phone. I emailed a lot of other cities, all of them in Weber County last week, and some of them responded, some of them didn't. So I jumped on Transparency today and put together a list. I forgot Hooper, I think, when I got looking at it, but I was just looking at what other entities pay there so that we're kind of in line, so you can see, okay, are we high, are we low? You know, like to say that Far West does, you can see Ogden is huge, but that's because they have a full-time mayor. You can see some of the other ones, it just kind of depends where they're at. And it would be, I think it's easier and cleaner if we just say, this is the amount that we're giving, rather than saying we're giving, like, breaking it up into a lot of different pieces. Historically, a lot of entities did that, like they would give a mileage allowance and various things. But in everybody that responded to me, nobody paid mileage or provided a vehicle or fuel other than if they was traveling out of town, like if they were going to the Utah League of Cities and Towns training or conference or something like that. Personally, I actually like it better if we give him a cell phone allowance and he pays for his own cell phone, because then at the end of his tenure, it's just really clean, you know, you stop. But that is totally up to you guys to dictate the form and the amount. And in talking to our attorney, he had the same concerns that I did, and he just wanted to make sure that whatever was in the policy was met city code. And so if you approve something different than what's budgeted, we will need to do a budget amendment too. So.
Ryan?
And in addition to that, if we do something that's different than that, we'll need to do a public hearing before we make that change.
And we need to do a public hearing for a budget amendment too. So we're gonna have a public hearing.
You can have it either way, different from,
Different than this or different than this?
so different from the 1,000 or 1,200?
Well, probably, because the budget's 1,200, the policy's 1,000. So
Change one or the other.
exactly.
Of these 6 cities, the average is up to 74.
They could probably keep it this way, but it would probably be better if somehow, like, I would prefer in D that it said, we're providing $200 and we're paying for the mayor's cell phone, just so that it's super clear. So, and I don't care. I mean, obviously, if you decide to pay like $100,000, budget, we're gonna have budget constraints, but it doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure that we've got it budgeted for and everything lines up right.
Yeah, so one of the first things that staff did for me was they did get me a cell phone. Good thing about that is this is a city phone. It's only used for city stuff, and that's, and there's no personal stuff on here whatsoever. And Lindsay, how much is this? $39 a month.
And that's fine, but it's up to the council.
I just want to make sure that it's out there and part of the conversation.
So
It could also be, you know, and when it's time for me to go, I can also just hand this to the next guy.
that's true. So it's up to you guys how you want to handle it. I mean, then it brings up the issue case. So you break your phone once a month, who's paying for that? Where if you just give an allowance, we don't care as the city, because we're paying him X, Y, Z and he takes care of it. So
I agree with let's just set whatever that amount is, but it is inclusive of the cell phone, the auto allowance, whatever, just to keep it nice and clean and simple.
I agree. It doesn't make sense to break it up into,
One of the things was the vehicle. And so we have to decide on that too.
Yes.
Well, the way so correct me if I'm wrong, the way I understood when Cody read it though, it was it was a vehicle allowance, cell phone, and
So it says, the position of the mayor shall be given a vehicle, fuel, and cell phone allowance in the form and amount as set by the Far West City Council.
right, that's what, right. But what I'm saying is that the way I comprehended it when it was read though, is that it's an allowance and it's to inclusive of all of those.
And honestly, I think part of the reason this code reads the way it does is I think it goes back to like Jimmy Papa George. And, right. And I don't think it was probably ever like totally tweaked or cleaned up when we switched mayors. But I feel like you're covered because you have the ability to dictate the vehicle, fuel, cell phone, and allowance in the form and amount you guys set. So if you set them
Pretty
out
open,
at zero, like
What
it's pretty
form
open.
do you want me to be compensated?
It's pretty open.
And-
Maybe Ryan disagrees, but that's how I read it. And so it's really in the city council's seat.
No, I think the form and the allowance for those three items is set by you. And let me just add, I think, I don't know if I've got the most institutional memory here, but it's getting worse by the day. But I do recall in a particular council meeting, at some point, the 2 mayors ago, Mayor Papa George had a vehicle and that was how things were. And that was great. When the next mayor came in, I distinctly recall a meeting where he said, I do not want the vehicle.
So we went from 2012 to 2017 at 1,000. It was 2017 when, the only thing in the minutes that say is that John said, per your request to give the mayor that is now from spoken. So we don't really have the discussion of what that was.
We don't know what that was from, but it, makes sense that was in lieu of no vehicle, the additional $200. So now again, whatever you want to do is good. If you stick with that, you can do it tonight. If you say, well, let's do something different, you just have to go through the process.
But we do have to go through the process either way, because either the budget or the ordinance has to be amended.
Right. You could leave it as it is and
fix the budget.
The budgets, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, so if you said we're doing the $1,000 per month and we're giving them $200 a month for allowances, then we're probably covered both ways, right?
That doesn't give you a vehicle.
So, and like I said, I don't care, we just need to know budgetarily where we're headed.
When we started this discussion, there was, because we're gonna be talking about trucks. There is a truck that is paid for that I could use.
We've budgeted, the thing with that, and if you want to do it, great. We have budgeted for that money to come back into the motor pool and pay for those future trucks. So we're gonna have to increase once again, it's gonna hit the budget because we're gonna have to change the amount that's reimbursing, which is fine.
Well, I guess
It's whatever you guys
simple
want.
aspect, is there a need? And that's, you're the one. that can answer that.
I've personally, this is me personally, I've been talking with the Public Works and stuff like that, and Nate, you're welcome to pipe up if you like to, but they feel like it'd be good if I had an official looking vehicle to officially go and address some of the things I need to address as mayor, as opposed to my broken down little 92 Ranger. And that was part of it. I can be on site to take care of things. I can interface with people, all of those kinds of things. That was part of what was actually going to be helpful, they thought, in many cases. So I'm not exactly sure where I'd park it, but I'm willing to do what I need to do to where if I need to go to someone's home and all that, it doesn't look like some guy just showed up in his old beat up truck. And that's just the conversation. I just wanted to have a clean, open conversation, but I'm okay with whatever you guys decide.
Play devil's advocate, though, I can hear echoes of residents that have spoken to me about, well, why are we spending this money and why are we spending that money? And so I could hear someone say to me, well, why is the mayor driving a truck? Where's the real need? And if my response is, well, to look official on city business, I don't know, does that hold up?
Yeah, I think under that, I mean, it could be almost any vehicle. I don't think it needs to be a truck or, something in that range, but
Happened to have one. They even said we could get a new one, but just wanted to have the conversation.
Yeah.
So how do you guys feel?
Sounds like if we do that, we're going to have a public hearing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. What it says in the form of the notice, council means, I think the statute reads anytime you change or adjust, you need to have a public hearing.
And then we would need to budget for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But we paid 1,200 a month last year, correct? I mean, we've been paying 1,200 a month.
But no truck, $1,200, no truck.
and it's going.
And the phone was on the city plan. So the phone's the same as it is right now.
Yeah, so the phone doesn't change, so not that I can offer anything out here, but part of the conversation, I'd be okay with leaving it as it says in the code, and no truck. And no 200.
Well, I think that
I don't need the
200
two.
for a fuel allowance is fine. I think that's what's been done. We've budgeted for that. I don't have a problem with that.
no, I don't.
Leaving it as is?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, for the fuel budget and other stuff. And like I say, having his cell phone, personally, it'd be nice to separate the two lives and not have.
That's why it's red,
Yeah.
That's what you said.
So,
the hot one.
so are you okay keeping it the way it is and just having that 200 as the allowance?
That's fine. I'm good with whatever you guys choose.
It's either that or a public hearing, Mayor. So, I mean, seriously, I mean.
Yeah, no,
So
It's you guys' choice, and I'm okay with what you choose. So with that being said, if we leave it as is there any action, anything we need to vote on?
Well, I think we just need to clarify what the 200 is, right?
I would maybe make a motion to clarify, so that we're.
So it's,
clear
so
for
it's
the next 8 years.
Yeah.
fuel allowance. Is that what it is?
That's what I would call it.
Well, yeah, I would say the 200 is a fuel allowance, but then in addition, we pay the cell phone
On the city.
on the
plan.
city plan.
So it's 1,200 and the city cell phone. So that being said, I think I'll make a motion to the mayor compensation ordinance 2.24.0.10 that we compensate the mayor in the form of $1,000 plus the $200 fuel allowance and the city cell phone on the city's plan per month.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by David and a second by Janelle. All in favor, let's do roll call. David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you we'll leave it alone. So, moving on, so here's the next item, approval of purchase of 2 new trucks on the buyback program through Young Chevrolet for the Public Works Department and the liquidation of 2017 one-ton Chevrolet. Nate, you want to come up and discuss this?
Okay, and I don't know if we need to discuss the liquidation of a 2018 Ford F-150 also.
Well, the question I had is, so was that prior to the state buyback program that we were, okay, so it is actually an asset of ours that we do need to.
Well, no,
Dispose.
the liquidation would not be part of the buyback program. The new trucks would be, the next go around.
Right. But the 2017, that is an asset we need to liquidate.
Right.
That's, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Back into the motor pool money that.
Yep.
Right, and I've included it in the budget.
You-
Right. Sell a couple
Yeah.
trucks.
Yep,
Oh, no, that one's not the mayor truck.
exactly.
Do you need to look at it too now?
Yeah, we would, if that could be added to the discussion to,
And it was part of the budget to liquidate two and have it come back. Yep,
yes.
okay.
I've looked around and the buyback program is still a good program. They've done a good job with that.
Yeah, the only problem we're having right now is that they're not getting the trucks in fast enough for it.
So he said he could only get you one, so if you
He
need
got us
two.
two. He
The
got us
email
two.
said one, but
No, there's two on there. There's
yeah, I saw the bid, but in the body of his email, he actually said that,
The one of the one kind. He could get the other.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
One of the one and one of the other.
thank you.
yeah. So there's one of each. There's one 3/4 ton and one 1/2 ton.
And that's what kind of confused me, because when I looked at the bid and I saw two trucks on it, I thought, well, is this just two that he's throwing out for a choice? But
So does Dave's truck go back and Bubba's truck? go
No,
back?
they stayed until July. Just before July is the rotation of the first two trucks that we did. Now we're adding two more trucks to the buyback program. And then after July, after the next budget year, we'll add another one or two trucks to the buyback program. So we'll have a total of,
Everything will be on rotation.
yeah, everything will be on rotation with Young Chevrolet.
And, I like the rotation program. I like the buyback program. Two comments. One bid had a 6.2 liter half ton. I think it's way overkill. And the total cost of ownership for the city,
Are you talking about the Trail Boss?
yes.
That is the only 1/2 ton truck that they will offer on the buyback program. The reason they do the buyback program is because people will actually give more for the truck after it's been used for a year.
I understand that, but we're not the ones benefiting from that. And the city does pay more to roll that truck every day because of that. So that's the one issue I had. Second is the Realtree camo option on the second one.
No, those are just pictures. They're if
No, it was actually in the line item. Look at a picture.
No.
It actually
It
stipulated.
said pearl white or something white on it. Summit white is what.
Right, but it had a Realtree package on it.
I don't think so.
Well, it's in there.
yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask. I'm like, really? We need the Realtree package? I
Well,
noticed.
I didn't put the packages together. He just said, these are the ones we have for the buyback program. And
So we can't really change or stipulate that?
not really.
Oh.
Yeah, we can't, we tried doing that. We tried saying this is all we need.
But the
They said-
price doesn't change for us either way?
No, they said that we can't put that on the buyback program because we can't
Can't resell it for
resell
more
it for
money.
that,
Yeah, I get it. So, okay. Well, those are the two questions I had about it.
I'd make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 new trucks on the buyback program through Young Chevrolet and liquidation of a 2017 one-ton Chevrolet and a 2018 Ford F-150.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Boyd and a second by David. Well, roll call vote. David?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Boyd?
Aye.
Janelle?
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you, Nate. Okay, moving into consent items, and on the consent items, we're just gonna do voice vote on these. So we
Make a
can,
motion that we approve the minutes dated January 6, 2021.
I'll second.
okay, we have David and Josh on the motion in the second. All in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to pay the bills, Ken.
Haven't even said
Mayor,
it yet.
sorry.
No, you're fine. So, okay,
I'll
wait, do we have
second.
a second? Josh with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, C, review of administratively approved business licenses. How does the council feel?
I didn't see any issues with any of them,
I didn't either.
or any concerns, so
I like that new process, so.
do too.
That's not an approval, right? That's just a review.
Yep.
That's true. So D, discussion action. Another fun one we get to discuss, the Php Refund Distribution. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about this. So what this is, and help me, Lindsay, in explaining it. So we got this check back from the Php for $3,083. So, and they basically say, hope that your employees in your city can benefit from this refund. It's based on, how they calculate it is based on experience. We have a lot of experience, we have longevity with our people and member engagement. My little story I'd like to share is that right now, we're in the midst of a great resignation. A lot of people are losing people left and right. And we're hearing things like some of our greatest challenges as cities are public safety, public works, and of course, water and housing. But as far as personnel, people are abandoning jobs left and right. I just today lost somebody I spent the last 4 years training to replace me because he could go on to greener pastures somewhere else. So kind of a thought of this is it's not a ton of money, but it is a bit of a thank you to our employees, kind of I'm going to call it a retention as opposed to a signing bonus or a don't go sign somewhere else bonus. And it's available for us to do what we please with it. So it's up to the council to make that decision and have a discussion about it.
Is this a refund on our premium of our health insurance? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I do have, I understand what you're saying, Mayor, and we love our employees and want to take care of them. And if they were paying premiums, I would probably be more inclined to do that, but all that is paid by the city, all their insurance. That's where I'm teetering.
And to add to Boyd, my concern is that if we get in the habit of, man, I put a cough drop in now that menthol's like coming up right into my eyes, so I have to take the mask off. Woo! I've
Spoiled on that one.
So I look at it as that I don't want our employees to get in the habit of thinking, well, if I don't utilize the healthcare system and we continue to get refunds because it's a co-op insurance type situation, then I don't want the employees to second guess whether they should go or not. If they need to use the healthcare that's provided for them, I want them to use it and use it freely, knowing that, the premium is paid by the city and that they're getting the best care possible because they're not questioning at the end of the day, thinking about it's not even a rebate. It's basically the money left over at the end of the year from the plan from everyone that participates in it. And this is our portion of the premium that the city does pay for the employees. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at this as well. Is that, if there is something to be said for what you had mentioned, Mayor, that then we look for other ways of recognition. But I don't think this is the right way to do it.
I did a little bit of funky math with this, just so that I understand it. It's not a ton of money. It actually turns out to be, basically what it is divvied up between the employees. It'd be approximately $28 a month a piece, somewhere in there. That's not a ton, about $1.50 a day, a little bit less than $1.50 a day for their working days. So that kind of puts in perspective. Maybe they don't even want it if it's only $1.50 a day, but.
Well, and the other thing we have to consider is that this is 2021 money. 2022 could be a completely different story and we could be in the deficit just as easily. Again, it's all based on how the group performs and how the larger group performs that we're part of.
Ryan Shaw has a comment for us.
Ask loud enough that Cody can hear me so he can chime in. I'm not sure there's a mechanism to do that under our ordinance for compensation. Maybe there is, I don't know,
I gave it to Ken when it came in, because the last one that came in, I asked our previous treasurer, I said, where do I receive this? I don't know what it is. And he said, that's meant for the employees, it should go to you. I went to the previous mayor and said, John said this is for us, and the previous mayor said, receive it. And then it died. So if the previous ones have come back to the city, that was the only reason why I brought it up with the mayor. I said, this is what previous treasurer said, nothing happened with it. So I don't know, I don't know what means, I don't know what it is, but, I mean.
So once again, it's not budgeted for to give that back to the employees. So potentially we'd be over budget by $3,000 for that. I look at it, a couple of thoughts. So that pool of employees, there's over 250 employers in that pool. So it's not really anything that particularly we did to earn that, if that makes sense. It's like, a couple of you guys have alluded to, it's really just our premiums should have been a little less than they were. So.
Okay, any other comments, questions from the council?
So Cody, what's your recommendation of what happens to it?
Where employees haven't paid into it, I would recommend it goes back to the city because they're the ones that have paid for the premiums. I think it's the city's money and we just got a discount in effect on our premiums that we're paying 100% of. Now, if the employees paid a part of it, then it's part of their money and we definitely need to look at that and they should get at least part of it back. But where the city pays 100%, I personally think it should probably go back to the city.
If that was in the reverse, we would end up paying that, we would pay that $3,000.
Right, if the city would, yeah.
Didn't we already pay that 3,000 within the budget?
We already paid it.
Last year, yeah, in 2021.
It was in the budget.
But to Boyd's
pay it.
point, you know, we wouldn't go back to the employees and say, hey, in 2021, we need to charge you more. We would just eat the cost, so.
It's not that we don't love the employees, just so it's
Yeah.
a point of record. It's just-
Can I make one? Again, I think that's probably an answer, simply because the ordinance dictates your time to pay employees. But on a city basis, could it go into something for employee wellness, something that would enhance employee wellness, whatever that might be?
Pizza party, just kidding, that was a joke, that was a joke.
Yeah, that makes us all.
Well, honestly, like, if you wanted to do something, that's probably what I'd recommend. Like, give everybody a $25 gift card or have something like that, because it's gonna be a lot easier than like this. And probably less money too.
I like that idea, because even though a gift card may not be a lot of value, it does, it always, you know, it's an appreciation, something.
And Cody, does everyone participate in the healthcare?
Yeah, I think all the full-time
All
employees. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Well-
If I don't have to pay?
Agreed, but like I said, again, we do the gift cards, and do we give it to those that are part-time, that don't?
And that's where you guys
That's
have to
true.
decide, and that's where it's a little tricky, and you can do the same dollar amount. Like, what about mixed recreation workers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it gets a little.
It's
About the
sticky.
treasurer.
Yeah, maybe we just keep, get it back to the city.
It's sticky.
Planning commission, and
Right, like where you draw the line.
the mayor again,
I want my $5.
like $2. Okay,
References.
so reeling this back in, we've had a discussion. We have the possibility of an action. What kind of action do we want to take on this?
I would
as
recommend that we
consent item?
follow the recommendation of our treasurer and put it back into the budget.
I agree.
Okay, so
Are we,
Motion
but we're not
and a
making a
second.
motion, are we? Or just- I thought it was
It
just
is a
discussion.
discussion action.
Oh, is it?
the action
Okay.
can be a motion and a
All right, I
second.
make a motion that we put this,
PEHP.
HP refund distribution back into the city budget.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by David and a second by Janelle. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed that can vote? I can't vote. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you for the discussion. Appreciate the discussion. So, our next item, we get into the report on assignments. Let's start with David.
Was there a Christmas tree?
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I'm looking at the one that was printed out and set out on the table. I apologize. Is it on the? So there is another thing that was brought to me about the Christmas lights. So the Christmas lights, here's something, that, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, could be costing us somewhere around, $10,000 a year just for the rental of the lift to go up and down, putting lights up and down and all that. Plus the expense of replacement of the lights themselves.
Plus the man hours.
Plus the man hours that even though they're worked for and they're not doing other things. So that's a lot of, expense for a month's worth of lights that, for a month's worth of lights. So, there's some thought into maybe we could, as opposed to $10,000+ a year going towards doing what we've been doing out here, maybe considering doing something else, like perhaps wrapping permanently the buildings here. I've heard of jellyfish lights, for instance. That's one of the ways to do it. Apply them to the buildings. It could actually be used for more things than just at Christmas time. You wouldn't have to rent the lift for those kinds of things. You wouldn't be possibly killing the trees that we have out front. And so that's kind of where that comes from. There's been some kind of concern that we're spending a lot of time and effort because you start a month before and you're still taking them down a month later. Other cities actually start months.
3 months before?
There's other cities, they actually have people that are, that's what they do. Ogden City, I think they have people, that's all they do is they put up the lights in their, downtown Ogden. They start in August and I think they get done in April. I don't know why they just don't leave them up, if they're doing that. So I'd like to have a discussion and make a decision on what we want to do about Christmas lighting at City Hall.
Are the lights a big draw? I guess maybe I've never driven back here to see them. I mean, I guess, I don't know, like.
Well, that's one of my comments, as long as my wife's not watching tonight. Because I always get in trouble when I talk about celebrations. So, I mean, we talk about Ogden City. I mean, economically, they have a huge draw. When they put up their lights, they get everyone downtown, they do a lot of stuff. I don't see that draw here. It's more of just for community spirit is really what we're doing. I know the last few years, we've had to cancel our big activities that we do with the Christmas lighting. So we haven't seen any of that. But I agree, back here in this corner, we don't get the draw of people like we could for the benefit.
Yeah. We'd have the lighting ceremony, good attendance of that, especially with all the kids that are singing. And then I'm just going to speak from personal experience, except for coming to, I guess it'd be possibly up to 2 meetings in December when I can see the lights. It's going to be more often now if we keep them. But other than that, it was as I was driving by the freeway, I could see the star. So that's what did it.
So far, and we don't have the rental lift that we put back, but we've only spent $3,900 on them for this year.
So we will need, we already did one lift just barely. You probably haven't seen that on the report yet. That's the big lift, and then we have 2 more lifts to take the lights down out of the trees. So that's probably another $1,200, $1,500 drop back there.
So we're closer to 555.
We did separate it out in the budget because we wanted it separate this year, but we haven't captured the whole cost. And I just have to say, my kids love the tree. Like you can take everything else with the tree.
Yeah, can we do like a?
That was another.
I love the tree.
The other issue with the tree is the lights that we've been using have been used for the last 10 years. They are destroyed. We probably don't have another year on the lights that we have, and they were expensive. The initial cost of those lights were, I think, around $5,000 or $6,000.
So in the past, Nate, have we ever sent this out to a private company for bid?
We did, I think they did with a similar company with Jellyfish, and I can't remember what he said. I think it was close to 15 to 20 grand to do the buildings.
And I know the way they work those, there's a startup. First year is always heavier than the following years, but
Is there a scaled back option, that reduces the lift use? I don't know. I mean.
We do make the little objects, like the little Christmas trees, little presents that we wrap the lights, put them on the ground. The flagpole light really isn't that bad, but again, we have to replace those lights. They're not cheap for those. But we can continue to build those little things and put them out. They don't take too much time or money.
I know I had at least one veteran express to me, his concern about using our flagpole as a Christmas tree. Just a comment that,
It's a valid comment. Yeah, I wouldn't-
It does put a stress on the pole, especially when we get wind.
Well, and just from what I know of the etiquette, I don't think it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be dedicated for the flag, right?
we could get a new pole for the tree.
Yeah. A lot of good, I mean, I like the idea that the mayor threw forward as far as having permanent lights on some of the structures. But I don't have a recommendation. I don't know.
I think at this point, I mean, I think it's a good discussion. It might be worth just getting some numbers to see what we're dealing with if we do.
Numbers to replace, numbers to do permanent. That's what I'd like to see.
I mean, that would be my recommendation right now, is we don't need to make a decision. Luckily, we still got a few months till this happens again, but maybe get some numbers and then let's see from there what our thoughts are. That would be my motion.
It'd be really easy to tie in with next year's budget, because it is a budgeted line item. So you can decide if we can do it with next year's budget. And you can decide what you want to do.
Ryan, is there a legal thing about trees?
Soon enough, where we can get a little public input. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
But I mean, you guys are out here tonight, you cancel Christmas, I'm just saying.
You know,
The year we canceled the 4th of July, my wife, I heard it for quite a while, so.
And the timing is gonna be COVID.
Nate?
With that, I think Roy does, they do have a fee to their monthly utility for lights. It's a small fee, I think it's only like $1 or something.
But that's how they took care of.
But I went to their,
Again, we don't want to do that.
when I went to their
We don't wanna raise
show,
taxes, we don't want to go to those fees.
but I went down to their city offices in that park and it's pretty amazing. I mean, they don't just have a few of the lights out front. Yeah. And they have it to music and to the whole works, so.
Lane has one, yes.
The one you could drive through.
Yeah.
But they've been working on that for like 50 years.
I do like Ryan's idea. I think it's, through using Google Docs, we could throw out another survey. I don't know what participation rate we'd get, but it'd be nice to at least hear from the residents.
Yeah.
It's easy.
If only
Doesn't
10
cost
people
us
reply, it's more than,
More than we, right.
you know, well, I guess we have 10 people here, but. Okay, so basically, no action taken on, I guess there wasn't really an action. Well, no, the action is we're gonna get some numbers and we're gonna get public input.
Correct.
Do we need that in any kind of motion? I don't think so either. Okay. Report on assignments. David, what have you got?
Not much. I actually missed my first mosquito abatement meeting due to COVID, so, just, that's it. I did talk to the chair just to reach out to him and let him know why I wasn't there, but other than that, no additional.
Well, it's a good thing to keep those things to yourself.
Don't want to share that, do we?
No, and Lindsay really doesn't
Someone shared it
want.
with me, though.
Yes, we all understand how that goes. Josh,
Sewer board meeting is next week. I'll be attending that. We will need to probably get a kickoff meeting going for our 4th of July celebration here in the next month or so, just to kind of lock down when we're doing stuff. This year is a little, because of when our fireworks are and a few other things, we're gonna have to kind of change up our schedule a little bit. So we'll get going on that. But that's probably all I have for right now.
Along those lines, the movie guy, I talked to him and I don't know if you guys want it or not, but it's penciled in for the Friday before. I think it's the 1st. So if you don't want it, just let him know, but we're penciled in anyway, so.
with the big inflatable screen.
Big inflatable screen.
Okay, Boyd, you're up.
Okay, we had our Weber Fire District meeting last Tuesday, where we, a week ago, last Tuesday, sorry. And we were hit hard with the elections. We lost 4 of our board members. So new board members were brought in. 2 of those were from the executive committee. I've only been on there a year, but I'm one of the senior members of the board. And yeah, and I was elected as the treasurer, so I'm on the executive committee. So for that, so we're well represented there. So not necessarily by me, but we're represented in positions. So other than that, can't think of anything else, but that's what's going on.
Okay, thank you, Boyd. Janelle, what have you got for us?
I'm not sure. I went to the planning commission meeting last week, which they have a big job and they do a great job at it. And then I was able to attend the legislative policy committee meeting via Zoom to go over, it's the kickoff, as you know, of the legislative session. So for the next 7 weeks, it's once a week, we get to be updated on what's going on in the legislature. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't so bad, huh?
Right.
Okay, I got a few things. It's been a busy couple of weeks, as everybody can imagine. So, like Janelle said, and we did attend the elected officials essentials on January 8th. And so both Katie and Janelle and myself, we survived 7 hours of training. So I'm gonna say these gals are ready to go, because if they can survive that, they can survive what we do here, because that's quite a bit. Yesterday, I went to the local officials day down at the legislature. That was exciting. They were, the youth councils were coming up with a new flag. And of course, I couldn't help but wonder, where's our youth council? We're gonna find them and we're gonna get them reinvigorated, and Katie's gonna be all over that. We got the information so we can get going on that. Also met with, one of the things they recommend is getting to know your legislator. Well, I happened to run into ours. We happen to know him very well, Representative Gwynn, who used to actually sit right over here. He's a good one to have, because it's good to have people with city knowledge on the legislature as opposed to just developers, which there are quite a few. I also attended the Legislative Policy Committee meeting. And yes, the next 7 Mondays until the end of the session, we'll be going to that. So we are voting members on that, so we'll be able to hopefully influence some of what the League of Cities and Towns is, getting the legislature to consider and knock down and all that. So it's an important thing. We'll be all over that. One thing that Representative Gwynn wanted me to share is that you can, if you want to get a hold of him and talk to him about anything, you can text him. That's the best way to get a hold of him. And if you want his number, I have it right here. I'm not going to read it out for the world, but anybody who wants to. But he does ask that if you text him, kind of say where you're from, because I guess he's been getting calls and emails from folks like from St. George, and he's kind of like, why are you calling me? Not your representative. So I've been getting acquainted with the daily routine of things. I think I've been here pretty much every day, haven't I? A lot to learn about just the staff, getting to know them and listening to them, and they're very important to listen to, and we want to keep them. Haven't been to WACOG yet. My first meeting will be on February 7th. I haven't been to a Bona Vista meeting yet. That's be on January 31st. However, next Wednesday, Boyd and I get to go and tour the sheriff's office. We get to go
Drive the tank.
We're hoping that they'll let us drive the tank and maybe set up a fence we can drive through. That would be kind of fun.
Call the sheriff and tell him that he shouldn't let you drive.
Katie and I attended the Communities That Care kickoff. She's going to do great at that. We were sitting at a table and they were like, you should be mingling. She's like, come on, let's go over and sit at this table. So she's into it. And so she's going to do very well at that. Ryan is working on a code enforcement agreement for us. Right, Ryan? So I think we're quite a ways down the road with that. The park committee did meet last week. We had some folks come in Justin Barrow came in, right? Is that his name? Justin. Came in, their family and his people want to do a small animal days, I think. And they want to do it April 7th, 8th, and 9th. They're basically going to take over the arena area at the park. We still got to come up with some of the details, but they want to make this an annual event and make it a, quite the thing. But in the arena, they're going to have animals of all sorts, from baby chickens to a great big Texas Longhorn for people to, check out and have kids and all that, check it out. And kind of weird, they're also going to cook one. In other words, they're going to be doing some brisket because they want to teach the kids,
Where their food comes from?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. So it's exciting. They're really excited about it. We're gonna go over the details of it over the next little while. So it's gonna be a good thing. Trails and Active Transportation are gonna meet next week. And I think I've exhausted pretty much all of those things that I've done and been a part of and are gonna be a part of. Any questions for anybody on all that? Any go backs?
Good start to a new year.
Yes. Busy couple of weeks, that's for sure. And we're gonna have a few more. Maybe our future agendas won't be as long. Part of that's the planning commission's fault because they keep throwing so many things at us, but that's your job. So we appreciate you. We have a final motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone ever opposed?
Nothing I've ever heard.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Thank you.